about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
That was great sounds of Watts on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ BlueZ. EZ BlueZ, you're always great with our introductions for the broadcast. Who do we have with us today?
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the big topics we talk about on this show a lot is mental health. It's very super important, whether it be our own journeys or things to go about. So when you have someone who is particularly, I don't know, educated in this system, we'd like to have them on the show to sit and talk about it as together. But to know somebody that is actually in our family, that is able to put something together that is so beautiful as per Confessions of an Anti-Therapist, I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2, because we don't need any accidents. But mentally, I want you to put your hands together for the fantastic, the amazing, the incredible, the stupendous Joe LaChance and Andrew Schoenfeld is here today to talk about Confessions of an Anti-Therapist. And exactly what is an anti-therapist, if I'm being honest?
Well, I guess it's someone who has issue with the way the mental health field is run, the way therapy is conducted, and what the therapist teaches their clients. And so I'm of the opinion that I appreciate all the hardworking social workers and psychologists, and APRNs, and the people that do the work. I appreciate their efforts. I just would like to add some information for clarity to help them and to help people have a better experience in therapy.
Okay. What has been some of the easy? I see the light bulb top of your head.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I know what you're about to say, and I don't want to stop that. I want to stop you. I got some questions.
I think this is absolutely incredible because
I got some questions.
Because there's a lot going on when it comes down to the mental health aspect. And I love how you sit and you talk about, there are these extra things that need to be added on there. It's something that, one, is a very individualized journey.
Yep.
And one that we cannot take, where it's a one size fit all type of fix. So I love that there are people that are out there that are still challenging against the norm, that are still adding on textures to it, that are still moving forward. What made you say, look, there are things that are going right and there are things that are going wrong, and we need to highlight the right? What made you take that avenue?
Survival. Plain and simple, survival. It's my opinion that therapists age like dogs. So back in 2015, I was probably, 230 years old, sitting in my favorite office, my kitchen. I had a woman standing at the front of the table, pacing around in circles, having an argument with her family. She had a high squeaky voice for her mother, a low voice for her father, different voices for her kids and different voices for her exes. And as strange as it might sound, I had my head down on the table. My arms were covering my head, basically to stay clear of the debris that was flying around the room. And I raised my head up off the table, and just like I'm about to do, and it might sound silly, but I picked my head up off the table and I said, "Why are you doing this to me?" Put my head back down on the table. Another few seconds, I raised my head up and I said, "Really, why are you doing this?" On and on she's going. After about a minute, I picked my head up again. Finger went up in the air and I said, "You're not thinking, you're listening to your subconscious mind and vomiting it all over my kitchen table. It's like you're a parrot." I said, "It works just like your bladder or your bowel. But when you take a crap, do you call yourself a crappy person?"
Right.
And in that one moment, I got it. I understood something. I experienced something. I didn't intellectually know it. I experienced it. I experienced the awareness that when people are complaining, they're not consciously doing it. It's like they're listening to a record in their head. Now, it took me many, many, many years to begin to be able to verbalize that in a way that people could understand, like that part about you're under the impression that you're thinking. You're not, you're listening.
Right.
It took me a long time to realize the reason why people are under the impression that they're thinking is the process is seamless. Information from the subconscious comes up and it's turned into pictures by the brain. Then
Right.
it's turned into representation. And because you feel emotions, the glue of personal reality, you're under the impression, the hypnotic impression that you're thinking. You're not thinking, you're listening. And
Right.
so for you guys here in the listening audience, I just want you to go inside and ask, what did you have for dinner last night? Take a second. What did you have for dinner? And let me know when you have an answer.
Well, I have an answer.
Okay. What did you have?
I had pizza rolls.
Did you see a picture of pizza or did you just hear the words?
I actually just heard the words themselves, mainly because I thought I did see a picture of the bag.
There it is. So it tells you how the system works. It's a
Right.
picture-driven system.
Mm-hmm.
But because it happens in your head, the process is seamless. It's your personal reality.
Right.
Now, you would say that you're going to be questioning now. I'm hearing things in my head. In our society, people that hear things are hearing voices and they're deemed delusional.
Right.
So our personal reality is a hypnotic reality, which is subconsciously driven, that we're not intentionally doing.
Right.
So you take a woman or a guy that comes into session and they say, I hate myself. That's not a consciously driven sentence. Is anyone sitting around consciously trying to figure out how to feel miserable? No.
Right.
But the mental health world takes that information and uses it to form a diagnosis for that person's quote unquote condition. Person comes in, talks about being sad, talks about being hopeless, and talks about feeling ineffectual. The worker is going to take that information and use it to form a diagnosis, let's say dysthymia, which is a type of depression.
Right.
What the worker is doing is taking subconsciously driven information and elevating it to the concept of conscious intent. So what they're doing is actually solidifying that person's identification with a subconscious process.
Right.
Now, it's vital to know, anytime you hear something in your head that puts you down or places you above others, I call it vomit. It's mind vomit. And there's a kicker here. You're biologically designed to have an emotional disruption anytime you mindlessly accept vomit as the truth. Mind vomit is a delusion. It's a lie. My life is worthless. That's a lie.
Right.
Potential is life's mandate. Anytime you go against the mandates of life's potential, you're going to have an emotional disruption. But these emotional disruptions are seen by this mental health community as evidence of an underlying condition or dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, life is trying to give us an indicator that we're moving in the wrong direction. So right off the bat, you have the idea what you're hearing in your head is not intentionally driven. Number two, you're not consciously or intentionally doing it. It's not your fault for having that mind vomit. Number three, emotional distortions are designed by life to help you learn to get back on the right track. There's no such thing as an unwanted emotion. Life does not work that way. And so my way of looking at it is session after session. I was doing that. I've done over 70,000 sessions. It got to the point where I broke, and I had to, in order to survive, I had to make greater sense out of what was happening in front of me. I had to innovate. And if I didn't innovate, I would have been swallowed up by everyone's vomit.
Right. Wow. First of all, thank you so much for your honesty and your POV on this. It's something that is refreshing to hear. Very, very, very much so. I've sat across many desks and been told many things have been wrong that have sat into a certain part of the DSM and those different aspects, and I understand it. But what you're saying and what I'm vibing with is just that voice in your head type of aspect of it. It's something that goes on all the time for me. Sometimes it gets so loud, it's like Kinnison screaming into the void, especially when things are silent. And for a lot of the aspects, we are conditioned to feel that those things mean we're deranged and we need to be standing on the edge on a corner with a sign saying the end is nigh. But that is not true. These are just normal things that do happen to the majority of people. How are you humanizing, this incredible process? Because I'm telling you, you're speaking in words that are touching my soul, but also kind of confusing the average everyday person that I am.
The law of life is potential, harmony, balance, growth, the potentialization of our lives. When we go against the potentialization of our lives, we are bound by life to have an emotional disruption.
Right.
Now, we all have the same mind vomit. We all have the same subconscious limitations: not good enough, not strong enough, not fast enough, inadequacy, whatever I do goes wrong. We all have the same mind vomit. Our difference lies in our tendencies. Now, in our world, when psychotherapy was created, because the writings of sages couldn't be duplicated in their scientific studies, the makers of psychotherapy threw out thousands upon thousands of years of sacred knowledge that spoke about how life works within the individual person. And so the mind model that was created was a model of dysfunction. Find out what's wrong, find out the underlying problem, and you'll somehow reach the holy grail of happiness. Mm-hmm. This is devoid of understanding of how life works. Happiness is not the absence of sadness. Happiness and sadness are two sides of the same coin. It's like life and what unfortunately we call death. They're two cycles of one force. But the makers of psychotherapy broke it down to, we have to find out what's wrong to find out what's right. That's a nuts idea. And in throwing out thousands of years of sacred information, they threw out the concept of tendencies. Now, Eastern philosophy would say that your tendencies come from prior thoughts, intentions, and actions. The fancy word for it is karma. The meaning of karma, Sanskrit meaning, is action. So prior actions that we've taken result in an energetic or vibrational essence. They're kind of like, you can call them energetic seeds that exist within our life. These energetic seeds basically influence the way we perceive our mind vomit. We all have the same vomit. We're not different in that regard. Yeah. How we perceive the vomit. One person sees the glass half empty. Another person sees the glass half full. One person feels that they're never going to get anywhere in their life. Another person says, you know what? I'm going to do my best and I'm going to try. These tendencies are within our life, which cause us to view our subconscious limitation, delusion, lies, limiting beliefs, mind vomit, causes us to view it as we do. Now, in the physical world, we're not going to do much to change our tendencies. But on the inner world, our inner intuitive world, we have a way to go inside and do the work we need to do to be able to change the way we teach our subconscious how to function. There are ways, many ways, to change our tendencies. We're not going to do it by sitting around and talking about how I got beat up when I was 7 years old. We're not going to do it by talking endlessly about how I feel like a victim, how I feel not good enough. That's complaining. The definition of complaint is wanting something that you subconsciously believe you can't have. And like I said, we all have that mind vomit in our head. Our job is to be able to create an inner intuitive, introspective practice where we learn to talk to our subconscious so we could find the potentials that are in there. We're not reprogramming the subconscious. Inside of each of us is endless potential. These potentials are non-physical, but they're as real as the nose on your face to your inner intuitive senses. When you learn how to go inside, you learn how to spot these potentials, and you learn how to speak it to your subconscious so you could bring it to fruition in your daily life. This is not going to be done by complaint, and it's not going to be done by blaming ourselves that there's something wrong with us, by blaming the world, that the world is making us feel the way we feel, and by our limited understanding of emotions. Emotions are a gift given to us for us to be able to learn how to change. Each emotion has a secret message hidden within it. Message of anger is wanting more of yourself. The message of sadness is the difficulty accepting a situation or condition. The message of frustration is knowing better, but not choosing wisely. Message of guilt is it's an inappropriate use of your reflective system, your ability to look back into the past and reflect. The message of fear is that you've fallen so far down the vomit hole that all potential is lost. These emotions get us to ask questions. When you're angry, you have to ask, how can I step up my game? How can I put more skin into the game? When you're sad, you have to ask, what am I having a difficulty accepting? When you're frustrated, you have to ask, what do I know better, but I'm not choosing? You fall into unnatural guilt and you're vomiting all over yourself, feeling terrible. You have to ask, what type of impartial view can I take on what's happened in the past? And when you're scared, the only time you can be courageous is when you're scared. The only time you could bring out the best in your life is when you're terrified. So you have to recognize when you're in fear. That's a launching point to break the system down. What are the potentials that I'm missing? Now, each of us has a voice of logic and reason that exists within us. You're not going to hit that voice of logic and reason when you're busy fiddling around with the physical world. You're going to be able to hear that voice by forming an introspective, intuitive practice. There are thousands of ways that people do it. Some people meditate. Some people find it through exercise. Some people find it through visualization.
And some people have listened to WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, our bearded brother, Long Island raised, Elm City made, the blues. And let me just plug a little bit right now. Check out Cannabis Quarter every Monday on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven with the one and only who's smiling right now, Joe LaChance. Andrew, continue preaching the gospel, brother.
Everyone has the ability to go inside and hear a voice of logic and reason. I don't care how bad your day is. At any point in a horrible day, you're going to hear a voice that says, slow and steady wins the race. Take it slow. it's going to get better. We're too preoccupied with our vomit to be able to realize we're not messed up because there's something inside of us messed up. We're messed up because something inside of us is not messed up, and it's trying to get our attention to lead us to a new way. This requires practice. This requires dedication and practice. 2 or 3 times a day, we have to learn how to create this type of practice for ourselves so we can operationalize the voice of logic and reason within us. The mere idea, you're sitting in your car and you're hearing a voice in your head that's beating the heck out of you. I'm not good enough. Nothing ever works out for me. I don't have money for the bills. And all of a sudden, you'll have an amazing moment of clarity. You'll realize that you're not doing it. You'll realize that you're listening to something. When that moment of clarity hits, a perceptual door to your inner world begins to open up. And this is something that everyone can become aware of, but we have to be able to pay attention. We're not thinking, we're listening. We have to get rid of the word I'm thinking. We're never thinking. We're either listening to vomit or we're listening to information above the vomit box.
Yeah.
So Andy, how did people how did this happen to us? How did this discrepancy happen where we end up having 2 voices in our head? We have the vomit. Where did it come from?
Well, we've had, in this go-round of civilization, we've had 2,000 years to basically learn how to kill off over 1 billion people. And so action leads to vibration. These vibrations are within our life, and it's inherited. It's passed down from generation after generation after generation. So we've inherited this mind vomit. We've inherited these delusions. And as a result, we're under the impression that we're thinking. So we believe that when it's happening, we call it thinking and we call it reality. Now, this is in a world where this country, great country, I love America.
Right.
We're the largest weapons producer in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's reality to us. That's a justified war is reality to us. That's normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal. We've been taught lies. What you hear in your head is not thinking. We've been taught another lie. What you see in your imagination is not real. What you see in your imagination is real to your inner intuitive senses. It might not be real to your physical senses. Once you begin to realize that what you see in your imagination is real, you're able to have more faith and more ability to fashion that inner reality, to form outcomes in the physical world. You know, when you look upon the world, your subconscious is telling you what you see. So you're not seeing it as it is. Take racism as an example. Subconscious program says one group is superior to the other group. One group is inferior to the other group. That's not life, friends. That's vomit. That's vomit that we've been taught. In the inner intuitive world, one can begin to realize the equality of all forms of life, because in the inner world, you can start to feel a connection to everything. I'm not making this up. This is not some kind of spiritual phenomena I'm talking about. It's just that science is not elevated to the point where these things can be verified.
Right.
In the inner intuitive world, we can experience a deep sense of connection with everything around us. When that happens, our differences melt away and we become 8 billion strong. We're 8 billion people. We're 8 billion strong. When you combine that with the power of the sea, the power of the plants, the power of the sky, the power of the earth, we're unstoppable to fashion a world where everyone gets taken care of. But we live the wrong narrative. We live the narrative that we're in a competitive society. No, we're a cooperative species living the wrong narrative. It starts out simple. Pay attention to people complaining. Pay attention to people when they're blah, 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 nothing is going right.
Right.
Just pay attention. And you'll begin to marvel at the fact that they're not consciously doing it. It's not a conscious, intentional act. You have no idea how many people have said to me, when I was a kid, they stuffed me full of medications. Right. I wanted to listen to the fact that my family was falling apart, and I could not tolerate what was happening. The vomit in their head grew to the point where they became out of control. And then the diagnoses start to flow. Anger, impulse disorder, bipolar disorder, depression. Now, I'm not saying that there are some people in the world who are so deeply affected by their vomit, by the pain they've inherited from their family, that they do not require things like medications. Not against that. I say to the people I work with, you might want to call the psychiatrist. What I am saying is that they are not chemically imbalanced because they're genetically inferior. They're chemically imbalanced because discrepancy is at work within their life. Discrepancy is the energetic difference between your vomit and that aspect of your life that's unfettered. That aspect of your life that represents the best of your life. Discrepancy is going to create an emotional disruption inside of you anytime you put yourself down or place yourself above others. But it all starts with realizing you're not thinking, you're listening. And you're listening to a mean-spirited voice.
Well, as per someone who, and I'm very, very honest about it, who listens to that voice on a regular basis and has it play in their head as a soundtrack, and I've always stated it was a soundtrack, over and over and over again. I completely understand what you're talking about, and can see that there are these incredible gems that are there. But I totally also see how you are pushing against, because the science itself has not been able to evolve to actually have the empirical data that is necessary to prove these points. How are you managing to operate while the rest of the industry is being held back by the science itself?
Someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, you must be a pretty peaceful individual, because I have a lot of moments of clarity. I've created tremendous outcomes in my life. I've done a lot, and I have cultivated a pretty nice presence, decent bedside manner. And I can project my energy fairly well. So they said, you must be pretty peaceful. I looked at them and said, I'm the least peaceful person you'll ever meet. This is a war. This is the silent revolution. This is the mission that we have, a silent revolution, a revolution where we change what's going on inside of our heads. This is a messy business. And we're going to feel a tremendous amount of disruption inside of ourselves if we fall into the vomit that nobody is listening to me, that nobody is understanding. We educate, we uplift, we inform endlessly. Nothing stops us from sending a message that there's so much hope for us. It's mind-boggling, the clarity that we can achieve. So I have a client of mine, a Christian fellow, with a cross on his chest, and he was talking about how nothing is going to work out in this relationship and how horrible he feels. And I said to him, that little thing dangling on your chest is talking to you. You're under the impression that you're upset because your relationship won't work out and that there's no hope. What I'm saying is you're feeling an emotional disruption because you're accepting as reality what you're hearing in your head.
Yeah.
Life is speaking to you. Now, There's a thing called Buddhism. There's a thing called Islam. There's a thing called Christianity. There's a thing called Judaism. As far as I'm concerned, the essence of the story is all the same. The stories are all different. The essence is the same. Life should be our religion.
Right.
The piece of higher logic and reason should be our Bible. And the same life that I live is the same life that's living inside of you and all of the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Our shared life is what we should embrace and worship. When we see differences, we're only seeing through our subconscious mind. Life is constantly speaking. So there are people that are going to disagree with me.
Mhm.
There are people with bigger degrees and fancier job titles. It's okay. I don't take that personal, because it's my job to try and teach to other people what I've experienced, not what I've learned, what I've experienced. And you can have the same experience. Start paying attention to what you're hearing in your head. If it puts you down or places you above others, you're biologically designed to feel an emotional disruption. You're not upset because you have this idea that you don't have enough money to pay the bills. You're biologically upset because you're buying into the belief of limitation. You're not upset because your boyfriend broke up with you. You're upset because you're buying into the idea that you'll never find love. You're not upset because people are making fun of you. You're upset because you're listening to their vomit falling into your own vomit. No one has the power to tell us, to lead us how to feel. Life is too busy doing it for us. Each emotion is a message. Anger is wanting more of yourself. Sadness is a difficulty accepting a condition or situation. Frustration is knowing better but not choosing. Guilt is misuse of your reflective system, and fear is falling so far down the vomit hole that all forms of potential are lost. Now, that might be our vomit, but life does not see it that way. Life will never give up on you, ever. Why? Because it's alive, just like you are. Want to know what life's name is? Just say your name. If you want to know what life looks like, just look in the mirror. If you want to know what life feels like, use your fingers and toes. If you want to know what life tastes like, live it. Live your life. Instead of seeing it out through your eyes, start to open up and go inside. You'll find something called a heart. You'll find something more powerful than anything anyone can do to you. So, like I said, when people go, Schoenfeld, you're off base and you're wrong, I'm like, okay, that's okay. But I'm not going to stop.
Schools, like high schools, and like, I feel like this should be.
Well, there is a book out there.
I'm happy
And
about the book,
after
Preston.
40 years, finally wrote a book so people can learn this. It's out there now.
Yeah.
Started a book and a podcast because we agree with you.
Yeah.
This message needs to get out
Absolutely.
there.
Definitely.
People have been, living under this delusional type of thinking. Here's the book. It's called The 7 Secrets of Psychotherapy.
There we go.
And we have a podcast that comes out every other week.
All right.
On Mondays. It's about a half hour long. It's called The Confessions of an Anti-Therapist. And we dig deeper into these concepts because there's a lot there in a very small book. But this is 40 years of Andy's experience with his clients and in life, kind of synthesized into about 80 pages. But you can read through it, and then you listen to the podcast, and we explain a lot of the stuff in here. It's not complicated. It may sound complicated, but it's not. It's really not. A lot of people, you hear people talking about the programming. Well, that's what he's talking about. Mind vomit is that subconscious programming that comes from the outer world that you've inherited through the years, that the schools have put in your head, and that, religion and the government and everything has put into your head. But the thing that is the programming goes completely against your human nature. And that's what he's talking about, what your human nature really is.
feeling
Andy.
it.
What is our human nature?
I love it. I really do.
Andy, what is our actual human nature, and why do we say the societal, let's say society itself, actually goes against our human nature?
You're walking on the street and an old lady falls down. Do you kick her or do you help her stand up?
Help us stand
Help
up.
us stand up.
Help us stand up.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
By helping her stand up, you're helping yourself stand up. Life's mandate is potential, balance, harmony, and growth. You see, my life and your life are the same life, living in different bodies. Now, in your life, there are billions of light switches to light up the light of your life, but you only have the ability to turn one switch on. That's your own. Where are all the other switches for the billions of lights within you? The other people around you, the environment, the world that we live in. You do not help yourself simply by helping yourself. You become aware of your mind vomit. You start to gain clarity so you can help other people untie the knot of personal reality. We're in this together. Right now, there are people starving. Right now, there's an old lady who has to choose between eating and buying medication. Right now, a father is so upset with the bills and the pressures on him that he's screaming at his precious little children. That's what we call reality. Life does not agree with that. That's why we have all these unpleasant emotional sensations. We're 8 billion strong. Nothing can defeat us. But when we look upon the world and only see out of our subconscious eyes, we only see differences. But that's not the truth. There's a hidden reality within us. This hidden reality is not known by your subconscious programming, but this hidden reality is available inside of you, in your inner intuitive world. Everything that could ever exist in all of its potential forms exists within your inner world. There's nothing to create. There's everything to discover. This is the potential of life. And since I'm alive and since you're alive, this is our potential. So to the person that said to me, you must be very peaceful, I am not a peaceful individual. That's the last thing I'm going to be. This is not the time to be sitting on a mountaintop going, oh. This is the time to stand up on your hind legs and howl. You tell your neighbor, I'm listening to what you're saying. Do you realize you're not consciously doing that? Tell it to your boss. You're screaming at her. She's screaming at you. And you say, right now, you're not really doing that intentionally. You would never want to intentionally hurt anyone. So what's our true intention? Do we kick the old lady down or do we help her stand up? You see a little child fall down. Do you pick the child up or do you just keep on walking? No.
Pick the child up.
Our nature, by picking one person up, you're picking yourself up because your life and my life are the exact same life. We are all entities of the one law that gives rise to life, birth, and death, happiness and sadness.
Many people call that God.
Right.
Well, you know what? We've been on the planet for a long period of time. This go round 2,000 years, and there's the concept of God, and there's the concept of religion. And like I said, to me, the essence of the story is all the same. How can I say that? The experiences I've had in life. I've had mind-bending experiences with what you call spiritual, but our science has not evolved to the point to be able to understand it for what it is. And so once again, our religion, our joint shared religion is life, Our Bible is the voice of logic and reason. And the one life that I live is the same life that you live, that we all live, that the planet lives, that everything in this world lives. And that is our shared life that we can embrace and worship.
On WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven, myself, Preston, and my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made EZ BlueZ. And also check out Cannabis Corner every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Andrew, Joe, this has been incredible. My 4 eyes are open. This is how did you two meet?
How did we meet?
Yeah,
Wow.
I like. Because Joe, I'm not gonna pretend.
Like
Joe,
twins combined. I'm seeing like.
Well,
Captain America, like 4s and 5. Tell me, please.
through a mutual friend, but
Okay.
honestly, I was going through a really rough time. My mom had just died, and we happened to share the same chiropractor. And my chiropractor said to me, he said, Joe, you look like you have just lost your lust for life. You've lost your joie de vivre. You need to call this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. When I trust somebody and I know them, I'll do what they say. So I called him. We set up a meeting, and I got to tell you, man, he was like no other therapist I had ever been to.
Wow.
I was going through a real dark night of the soul time. And this was the type of stuff we were talking about. And I was so impressed by the fact that he never asked me about my childhood. We never talked about, what my father was like or my relationship with my mom or any of that crap that they talk about. It was about now. It was about what you're thinking now. And he taught me these concepts. And I got to say, they've changed my life. We have now gone from client to friends, like to really, really close friends, like brothers. Because I just think what he says makes so much sense. And if you're able to grasp the concepts, and I'm lucky to be able to spend enough time with him, that it is the truth. We are part of one giant ecosystem that is called life. And our mandate on life is the same as the plants. You need to grow to your fullest potential. The plant is not going to stop growing until it buds and gives out the flower. And from what I'm in, the business I'm in, I know all about that.
Look, I'll be honest with you. When I heard you were coming back on the show, I prepared in a whole different type of way.
No, this is a new direction. So,
this is incredible.
I mean, obviously, as a host and as a broadcaster, I like to talk to people. About what they do, you know what I mean? And this subject really, really, really interests me and has my whole life. Andy was the first person I found who actually put it in English. Now, I've read all those ancient texts that he talks about, but they're in the ancient language. This is modern day language with the same concepts. And the concepts have always been the same. We are all one. We are all one. We always have been. And it's our subconscious programming that makes us think we're separate. Unfortunately, we need that subconscious in order to help us navigate this material world. So what has happened is it's kind of gone off function. And I'll leave it to Andy with that.
I started chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo 41 years ago. In the little book that we read in the morning, there's the last verse that says, "This is my constant thought. How do I cause all living beings to gain access to the unsurpassed way and acquire the body of a Buddha?" I chanted, 35, 36 years to be able to come to my own conclusion what that means. The words of the Buddha are the words of life. Life awakened, life, Buddha, all the same word. My constant means it's 24/7. My thought, another word for that would be my intention. How do I cause all living beings to gain entry to the unsurpassed way? The word cause got me, and I came one day to realize that the way it works is through discrepant emotions. You put yourself down, you place yourself above others. Life then sends you a message that you're moving in the wrong direction. In the Buddhism I practice, it's called Nichiren Buddhism. The one who started that, Nichiren Daishonin, says over and over that if you slander the law, unfortunate things take place. We are entities of the law. We are the law in living form. Like I said, if you wanted to know what life looks like, look in the mirror. If you want to know what life sounds like, say something. And so I came to understand that, and it took me a while to turn it into English, like Joe said. So basically, my conceptualization of it is I've taken the theoretical ideas of Nichiren Buddhism and turned it into operationalized English. That's why, for me, my introspective practice is chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Do it twice a day. But that does not mean that there are not other ways to gain access to the inner world. There's, I love chanting, but there's no way I could tell or I could say that there are not other ways to do this.
Meditation. I'm a practicer of meditation. I do not chant. And yet you find many people who are able to, and that's the whole point of the chanting, the meditation, the walking, anything is to quiet that vomit mind.
Yeah.
See, that is it. The vomit mind has to learn to shut up for a little bit so you can hear your inner intuition, your actual self, your true self. That vomit mind is not yourself. That is the projected self that is on this world here, the material world. But in you, you have many levels of consciousness.
So it's our job to be able to help people operationalize it the simplest way. Start paying attention when you're complaining. You'll have a moment of clarity. You'll realize that you're not doing it. Pay attention to the emotion that you experience. I'll say it again. Anger is wanting more of yourself because your eyes look out at the world. You say, I'm angry at them. No, anger is wanting more of yourself. Sadness is the difficulty accepting a situation or condition. Frustration is knowing better but not choosing. Guilt is a misuse of your reflective system. Fear is so falling down the vomit hole that all potential is lost. Each emotion gets you to ask a question, but you got to have guts. You got to fight. You got to stand up on your hind legs. And how? This is not the time to be sitting around trying to find some kind of Om-like experience to escape the ugly that's inside of you. You're not going to escape the ugly. You're going to learn how to embrace it because the ugly and the beautiful are the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin. You're not going to eliminate suffering in this life, but within suffering, you're going to find knowledge, wisdom, a voice of higher reasoning that everyone possesses. And you start out with clarity. Pay attention to what you're hearing in your head. If it puts you down or places you above others, that's the indicator. You're going to feel an emotional disruption. It's called discrepancy. The energetic difference between your vomit. In Buddhism, they called it your Buddha nature. This
Christ consciousness in Christianity.
Christianity would be your Christ consciousness. This nature doesn't go to sleep. It's unfettered. No matter how many lifetimes you kill people, it still remains golden. Life has hope for everyone, every moment of every day. You're never at a standstill. You're never, ever, ever behind the 8 ball unless you fall into mind vomit that tells you that's the case. There's always a solution. Discrepancy is a spiritual process. It's not a psychological process. So in the physical world, you might not have the solution, but in your inner intuitive world, some people call it your spiritual world, there's always a solution. There's never a standstill. Life will not abandon you, whether you call it Christ or God or Buddha or Allah, whatever people call it. It's always speaking to you, always trying to help you. So this is the time to stand up and howl. This is the time to fight for us, because we're 8 billion strong, and there are wars going on all over the place where people are suffering. If you're under the impression that we don't feel that because it's thousands of miles away, you're mistaken. If you're under the impression that you don't feel the ocean screaming because of pollution, the sky screaming because of pollution, because of old people and children being abused, you're mistaken, because you're a part of that. This is our life. We have to be able, through that knowledge, to take responsibility for our world. It's not my world. It's not your world. It's our world. Taking responsibility means, look, I didn't create this mind vomit. I inherited it. I have my own tendencies, which I can begin to change, so I could learn how to use my vomit to move forward in life. There's hope. There's hope for all of us. There's hope for this world. And we ain't going anywhere for a long period of time. So let's
we are going. I gotta end this.
Can we plug the show and the social media?
You're gonna plug that social media. Joe, you need 2 shows on WNHH LP 103.5.
I'm ready to put this on 103.5. You tell me.
You need 2 shows. So we gotta
I'll talk to Harry.
We gotta do a double block something. You gotta have 2 times a week.
Well, you do.
I mean, you gotta be you gotta follow this train as well too. So you gotta.
Well, I'm ready to put this on the air on WNHH LP, of course.
Hey, man, plug your podcast. Plug the podcast, plug the book. I'm happy we're the first stop on this book tour.
Yes, you are.
Go ahead.
All right. So the book is The 7 Secrets of Psychotherapy. It's out on Amazon right now. You can look it up. It's definitely worth checking out. The podcast is called Confessions of an Anti-Therapist. We do it every other week. It's out on Spotify under Andy Schoenfeld, LCSW. It's also on YouTube. Andy Schoenfeld, LCSW. All the social media is Andy R. Schoenfeld. That's Facebook, IG, Twitter, and whatever the other one is, LinkedIn. So you can find us all on the social media. But please, and if you need to get a hold of Andy, he still, is available. He is in Connecticut. He's available, for consultations. You can email andylandproductions@gmail.com if you're interested in booking Andy for speaking, or if you'd like to speak to him on consultations. Is there anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
For people to reach, because I have so many of these sites up now, which Joe basically maintains, can I give my cell phone number out?
That's up to you.
Yeah, 203-545-5459. That's 203-545-5459, and text me. I still use pencils and paper for all of my duties. I'm not so much of a computer individual. So if people want to call me, please do. It's so much better than that email. I find emails. Oops, that came 3 weeks ago.
Gentlemen, thank you. This has been a definitely eye-opening experience. We definitely do appreciate you right here on the show, Preston Easy Blues. I'm Preston with my bearded brother, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. Easy Blues in the building. Gentlemen, thank you once again on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, New Haven.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know.